Welcome back. In this video, I would like to talk about some very important parts of your map. And these are the limitations as well as basically just areas where your player cannot get to. Okay, so let's make sure that we take, for example, these parts here and also the roof, duplicate it. Then I'm going to drag those over there onto the other side. I'm going to make sure that I'm snapping them correctly. And now let's actually rotate this whole bunch by 90 or by 180 degrees. So let me see, like this. And it's not actually that working that well this way. So let me just drag it. Okay. So this should be fine now. Okay. So now we have limitations on both sides. And something that you will notice is that if you look at one of those walls that you have here, the buildings, is that they have a mesh collider. So they have a collider, which means we cannot walk through them, which is very important, of course. But now let's create some more colliders here. So what I want is, I want that the player cannot walk past this area here. Of course, the player can jump on top of this stuff that you can see here, but now let's actually limit him. So let's add a couple of trees in here. So I'm going to position them using the move tool and let me put them in here. Then let me duplicate this and put the other tree a little further down there. Another one over here, another one over there. So now maybe also some tree scrubs like this. Let's make sure that they're positioned at 0, 0, duplicate, put it next to it. So while this is not perfect, it's still fine, right? So we can go ahead and maybe add another window and house here, or wall with a roof. So let's duplicate this and let's drag those over here. Duplicate once again, drag over there. We can do the same with this garage here. Duplicate, move over there, duplicate, move over there. So now, of course, here you see we're missing the ground. So we could, of course, move this ground underneath, duplicate, move it over here, duplicate, move over here. So now it looks a little more like, okay, there's, for some reason now there are trees. Okay, let's make sure that maybe we don't have concrete underneath it, but more of a green underground or green ground. So here, grass, for example. Okay, so let's drag in the grass. Let's make sure that we position the grass accordingly. Then duplicate the grass. Duplicate once again, like so. And let's make sure that it's positioned. I'm going to overlap here. It's fine for this purpose. So now we have grass there. And what we can now do is we can now add a huge wall that will stop us from passing it. Okay, so here let me add those all to decorations, like so. And now let me add an empty game object, and I'm going to call this one wall. All right, so now let's add this wall. Let's duplicate this, by the way, and we can also rotate it a little bit so that it looks a little cooler. Add another one like this, rotate it a little bit because otherwise it looks like it's just too clean. Okay, so now we have this wall that I created. Let's move it. Actually, it's going to be empty. So let's make sure that we change its Y and X position. Oh, okay, so it's jumping over there. Let's get rid of the Z position as well. Okay, so where I want it to be is, I want it to be over here. Okay, so let me drag it over there, and it will look a little better once I give it a component. So let me give it a box collider here, for example. Okay, and this box collider should be a lot bigger. Okay, so let's play around with the scale here, and the X scale of, let's say, 20 should be good here, and the Y scale of 20. So now we have this big wall. Let me move it up, something like this, and let's move it over here So now we will have inside of those trees, we will have this wall. We can even give it a gizmo. Let's add a gizmo here so that we can actually see it inside of our scene a little better. So now we have this wall. Let's click on it. And this wall should limit the player from walking through. So the player can walk into the trees, but he cannot walk any further than that. So now you could, of course, block his vision a little further by adding some more trees over here. So let's duplicate this tree and let's position a couple more trees in here. It can be a little more random. You can even rotate them if you want to. So let's rotate, well, not this direction, but this direction, like so. Let's rotate the trees a little more so that they don't look all the same. Okay, so this should create an effect where the player, let's assume, so the player is not going to have this flying position as we do, but the player is going to be like at this level, okay? So that's how high the player will be. And then he will walk over here and he will try to pass through, but he can't, okay? So he will be blocked by our wall that we just created, okay? And this is also going to be a good spot for zombies to spawn because the player cannot see where they're coming from. So they're coming from the trees. And let me, by the way, make sure that I'm duplicating the grass down here so that it looks a little better. It doesn't look like the trees are on the gray ground or something like that. Okay, so now if the player who's limited to not go any further than this, for example, you will only see trees. Well, in the background there, you could of course add, well, actually in our game we will have a horizon, which will make it a little better, I believe. But yeah, overall, you see now the player will be limited. He cannot go any further, and this is going to be the spot where suddenly our zombies are going to spawn. And they will come from here. They will maybe pass through the edges here, or they will come from the other side, and then the player has to shoot them. Okay, so this is something that you now have to consider at every single point where the player can run out of your game and glitch through your game, so to speak, glitch through the walls. So really make sure that you build a map which is consistent, but also tells a story, and at the same time has limitations where the player cannot walk through, because your map just won't have anything else to offer. There's nothing cool that surrounds the game anywhere outside of this little map that you're building. And it's even good if you build something that the player cannot access, that is going to look like this is a real map that doesn't just end at the edge where we're walking towards. Okay, so you could build the street a lot longer towards this side. You could build more houses here, even though the player might not even see them correctly, and so forth. All right, but that is something that you would now need to do towards all sides. So yeah, see you in the next video.